Hello everyone, it's True Love here with another One Piece chapter review, this time for chapter 1077. Be sure to read the chapter before you watch this video though, as I will be spoiling it in its entirety. The first thing I want to mention is some info brought up by Zoro in regards to the Seraphim. In his fight against S-Hawk the Seraphim, he notices the similarity between them and King and how they only take damage when the flames on their back are out. Have you noticed how every time the Seraphim use a powerful attack or more their devil fruit powers, the flames go out? Kind of like King when he was using his strongest attacks. If you read through this chapter and the past couple of chapters again, you'll see every single time they use their green-blooded devil fruit abilities, or when S-Snake uses one of her big laser blasts, their flames are out. Okay, into the chapter. So our cover story opens in the present day with Judge and Caesar both battered and bruised and out of breath in each other's faces. Their character designs are from the present day, and we can also see adult Ichiji and Reiju in the background, which confirms this. The battle between these two has maybe knocked some kind of sense into their heads, as they both come to the conclusion that their real problem is in fact Vegapunk. Notice here that Queen is nowhere to be seen. This likely means that before Mads split up entirely, Queen left and joined the Beast Pirates, while Caesar and Judge continued to work together for a while. The more these side stories develop, the more details come to light about how the Mads members' expertise is all overlapped. Vegapunk and Judge being into cloning, Caesar developing artificial devil fruits, which are in turn used by the Beast Pirates, and so on. Everything is connected with these guys. The chapter begins with a little bit of exposition from none other than Sentomaru. He quickly sums up and retells the story of Ohara, whilst also showing the duality between that story and Egghead Island. The people of Ohara were researching and uncovering information about the Void Century, and when the world government got wind of it, they completely obliterated that island and every person on it via a buster call. In the present day on Egghead, Vegapunk is researching and uncovering information about the Void Century, and guess what the world government is doing? Trying to obliterate the entire island again. This time by sending 100 ships, assassins, an admiral, and even one of the Gorosei in person to make sure the job is done correctly. This is ridiculous. The fact that the world government is prepared to lose the greatest mind ever all over the discovery of the events of the Void Century is massive. So what on earth happened, and why is it so damning that they would lose such a useful and powerful asset to them over it? We get an awesome panel here, which is the citizens of Ohara all smiling and happy together. Saul has tears of laughter in his eyes, and Professor Clover is striking an awesome pose. And really interesting key feature is the addition of Aokiji here. If you zoom in on the expression of his face, it looks like someone snapped this photo where, obviously they're all posing, they're all happy and smiling, but for him, it looks like he's been caught in the act. He looks very shocked. And if he is some sort of member of this group or a sympathizer, he clearly doesn't want that information to get out via a photograph or something. Very, very interesting. It also goes to explain some of his later actions. The chapter continues into the skirmish between Luffy and Lucci vs S-Bear, and Zoro and Kaku vs S-Hawk. As cool as these fights sound on paper, I'm actually kind of not feeling it. It just feels like obvious fan service to me, and I really don't think CP0 and specifically Lucci would ever team up with the Straw Hats. Also, these panels are so kind of similar to the last chapter of the same fights. It seems a little bit copy-paste from the last chapter. I don't really need to see this. It's not really having a big impact on me as the first time I saw this fight. The reaction faces of the Seraphim after taking more massive team-up attacks are quite curious. So they're looking very inquisitive, they're looking at their own bodies and they're unsure. It's like they're checking themselves, legitimately unsure whether they've taken any damage or not. So this actually makes sense, because they've never faced anyone on par with Luffy's gang, not in a proper fight. Anyone that mentions Blackbeard here, shush, that was not a legitimate fight. This is the part where Zoro brings up that the Seraphim remind him of King, and I actually laughed at the way that he brings it up. Zoro notices the flames on the Seraphim and mentions how King would only take damage when his flames went out. Lucci here concedes that this is good intel, but the punchline comes as Zoro mentions he would have said something sooner had he noticed a similarity. The only other similarities are the white hair, the brown skin, black wings, and the flames on their bloody backs. So cue an awesome reaction from the other three. Zoro grins as he clashes with S-Hawk to defend Shaka, as Shaka mentions, ooh, hey, maybe I've got an idea where the stellar body may have ended up. I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. We shoot to the fight between Brook, Nami, and Edison versus S-Shark, who was of course Jinbei's Seraphim, which unfortunately is not going so well for the Straw Hats. Brook's head has been knocked off, and Nami's been forced to send out her trump card of Zeus. Zeus actually does quite a bit of damage to S-Shark, as we can tell from his whited out eyes and the burn marks. In the reaction after the damage from Zeus, we can see his flames are still activated. So obviously the damage is not going to be long lasting. I also wonder if, because he's based on a fishman, I wonder if it's kind of similar to Pokemon, about how like a electric Pokemon does super effective damage to a water Pokemon. Because Jinbei is a fishman, he's probably even more water than humans are, and the electricity from Zeus probably does a crap ton of damage to him. He then activates his swim fruit power to plop into the relative safety of the ground for a sneak attack. Brook has always made me laugh. I'm going to put up a video here of when he sees Duval for the first time and absolutely loses his shit laughing. I watch that video maybe once every 6 months and I still piss myself laughing. The way that he jumps straight back up and just pops his head back on after hearing the plop, he starts taking the fight seriously. It's amazing. I love how dramatic he is, and I love how he does actually take shit seriously when he should. Nami screams as S-Shark pops up behind her, about to do massive damage from behind her, but what happens when Nami screams? Well, of course, Sanji will come from anywhere to save her. Sanji comes screaming in completely horizontal and drop kicks the heck out of S-Shark. Sanji sends him flying and into an explosion. However, we can see the flames are still on his back. He says here that he warned S-Shark. In the scans, he said something about going easy, or I'm not going to go easy on you anymore. I'm sure a little bit is lost in translation, but it does give me the thought that he is not going 100% on the Seraphim, and all of the Straw Hats seem to be not going 100% on these guys. I feel like Oda is really giving us key bits of information, especially for the monster trio, letting us know that they're not going 100% on the Seraphim right now. We return to the bridge where Frankie and Usopp have teamed up with Lilith and the head of Pythagoras versus S-Snake, who is of course the Seraphim of Boa Hancock. Lilith fires her bubble gun at S-Snake, who easily swats it aside, but then crumbles and falls over in a heap. So apparently these bubbles are made out of something to do with the ocean and its energy. Could just be the straight water from it, I don't really know. But the green blood clearly is giving the Seraphim the pros and the cons of the Devil Fruit users. The teams have just enough time to compliment Lilith, who has time to strike a really cool and funny pose, although this is all the time S-Snake needs to recover, as right when Frankie is about to restrain her, she boots him in the face. The next panel shows her shooting a massive laser blast from her hand, and notice the flames on her back are out. This gives Frankie just enough time to sneak up behind her and slam a bubble on her, trapping her beneath. The master manipulator of Boa Hancock, though, not Boa Hancock, twists Frankie around her finger to have him release her before whacking him and turning half his body to stone. After that, it easily dodges more bubbles before turning Usopp and Lilith to stone. Now, there's only one half of Frankie and the head of Pythagoras that aren't petrified, so I have no idea how they're going to get out of this mess. Can he grab a bubble and rub it on the stone parts of his body, maybe? Can Pythagoras' head do anything? I don't think so, especially with S-Snake right there. The final pages of the chapter show us where Shaka went to look for Stella, and wouldn't you know it, he found them. Why didn't he look there sooner? Why didn't he think about this sooner? We have no idea. We're down in the basement of Egghead Island, and Shaka has finally found Stella and accidentally found the CP0 members as well. You can tell by the way that he reacts with such surprise to the CP0 agents and the happiness when he sees Stella. The way that he runs over to him and says he's so glad that he's safe. We can be fairly certain that he had no idea what was going on behind everyone's back. Unfortunately, though, just as he gets to Stella, the Stella asks him, "Who's that behind you?" just in time for a cracking gunshot to be heard and Shaka's head to get snapped back in quite a violent panel of him being shot in the head. So there's what looks like blood flying out of his head. He's in a very painful looking pose. However, when this is colored, it may be black, like oil being shot out of his head, or maybe even green blood for all we know. Shaka seems to be dead, and we can hear quite a foreboding ka-tok, ka-tok, ka-tok sound as the shooter slowly walks towards Stella. We have one panel here where it looks like you can see smoke rising from a gun barrel up the stairs. I think that's what it looks like to me, but it is definitely not certain. We then zoom in on Vegapunk and he looks terrified, even with snot coming out of his nose. So that's enough information to tell us that he does recognize the danger in the position, obviously, by seeing Shaka get shot, and he likely recognizes the person who is staring at him right now. I doubt that it's Caribou, because he definitely doesn't make a ka-tok sound when he runs. Sound like this person has like a peg leg or a walking stick or something. Like, could it be Saturn there already? We kind of lost track of them as soon as we heard about them, so who knows? This chapter has continued with the slower pace of, mid-Egghead Island. The breakneck pace has slowed, but definitely not stopped. And everyone, if you have watched this far, please consider leaving a comment or a like. Let me know who you think the shooter is. Who do you think has betrayed the Vegapunks from within? And also what your thoughts are on the team up between Luffy and Lucci in particular. This is True Love, and I will see you all next week.